Alright, so today in the shop we got this raggedy old 57 Chevrolet thingy-dingy. And, I don't know, it's been restored at some point. They put some, I don't know what kind of seats they are. They look like S10 truck seats to me. And then they covered them. I mean, and then that center console. I don't know. It does have some nice gauges in it and whatnot. But yeah, you figure, 57 Chevrolet would have a little bit nicer interior than that. So this is one of my customers that I worked on, Z71, 06 Z71. He had a bunch to it, rear main seal, oil leak type stuff. And then he had this car, and was, it's old school carbureted small block Chevrolet, which I don't work on and never have worked on and don't want to work on. But anyway, so we got he wanted a serpentine set up because back then every accessory got its own belt and bracketry, and it was just a disaster. So, and it was squealing and it drove him nuts, and I can relate to that. So we found a serpentine set up at Summit. I think it was Pro Comp or something. It wasn't a bad kit. There was absolutely no instructions, all kind of spacers and bolts and washers, and you just kind of had to play around with it until it kind of fitted it. And you can see how tight we are with between the water pump and all the, I can barely fit my hand between the alternator, and it's probably the furthest back of all the accessories. And so the other one was just, it was so close, it was actually touching the radiator. The radiator would not even fit when the other set up. I had to take it back off, tried to clean everything up best I could, took it back to Summit, and then they charged me a $150 reboxing fee, which is the first time they've ever done that. But anyway, at least I took it back. So this is the Holley kit, the Holley mid-mount kit. And I will say, for a kit, it is very complete. It had the wiring pigtail for the alternator. It had a power steering reservoir, the power steering hose hard line to get to -6 for the pressure side. Very good instructions. Everything was well boxed and labeled, and I was very impressed with this one, especially coming from the other one. The other kit did not have a power steering reservoir, and it said it was a one-wire GM alternator in the description, and the connector was actually a 4-wire, but it wasn't like the GM plug. It was some different plug that I'm not familiar with. So I was actually made a list up and was going to Summit to get all these things to try to get the other kit to work. And something just told me to try to fit in the radiator before I got too far involved with it. And sure enough, radiator would not fit. And then I just had to take everything off and go ahead and carry it back up there. And luckily Summit did take it back. I did, have to pay the reboxing fee and whatnot. But I don't know what we're going to do about the cooling fan. All we have is this thing, this pusher fan, and historically pusher fans really don't do well. This is quite a large radiator for an anemic 350 Chevrolet, so I don't know. All we can do is try it, because this is the tightest, closest kit serpentine that they have for these things at Summit. So I did look at it, and it looks like you could move the radiator to the front side, and then, if you do that, it just snowballs downhill, and I really didn't want to be this deep into it, to be honest with you. I really didn't want to mess with this thing, but, he's a good customer of mine, and, I try to help people out, and it typically backfires on me and ends up I get screwed, so that's just how it goes. But it would be advantageous to have the radiator on this side, but then, you know, I got to figure out where to put the condenser. Somebody made these plates and brackets and all this stuff. So, and then, you know, your hoses aren't going to reach, and then I didn't know how it would do with the hose going over top of this, and I don't know. I mean, we may end up having to do that. I don't know. So we can have a puller fan through the radiator, because, like I say, historically, from everything I've always read and encountered, the pusher fan just does not move enough air or work well enough. And I did confirm that it is spinning the right direction, because one time I put a fan together and I wired it up, you know, red to red, positive, and black to ground, and the stupid fan was blowing the wrong way. The guy went and drove it and came back and was like, you know, it actually was running hot or whatever, and I was like, really? So we turned it on, and sure enough, the way I wired it, you know, red to positive, was actually blowing against the air as he was going up the road. So anyway, I switched the wires around and we were good to go on that one. But I wanted to make sure that this one was turning the right way, because it is, you know, it should be a pusher fan. And I hope it works, but I'm not thinking it's gonna work. I don't know, like, if the other Chevrolets, like, were they, I assume, you know, I don't know 57 Chevrolet, but I think that back in this era, it would have been a copper radiator and probably would have been about this thick. So I don't know, you know, why. It's a pretty tight engine bay, you know, and you've got all this room right here, which, you know, the bumper is the perfect level for my shins, and then the core support's like right on my chest, so I'm all bruised up from laying over this thing trying to get this accessory drive on. But it's been an adventure, and hopefully everything works well from now on, or from here out, or whatever. But I do have to vacuum the system down, the AC, vacuum it down, and because it was low on Freon when he brought it. So, you know, when we took the old Freon out with the machine, it wasn't, it didn't have much of a charge to it. So I'll vacuum it down, see if it holds. I mean, to be honest, if it doesn't hold a charge, I mean, I'm not wasting my Freon to recharge it, and I'm not going to try to find a leak in this system. So, you know, that's going to be on him if he wants to take it to a shop. But the problem with that is finding a shop, because I worked at a radiator and air conditioning shop when I was a teenager in high school, and I remember there was some guys that had LT swapped a square body, and the AC compressor was down, and they had cut the frame rail out, and the AC compressor was in the frame rail. And Roland looked at it and was like, nope, we ain't touching it. So they actually went back and did some work on it or something, brought it back, and he ended up charging it for them. And I don't really remember, that was a long time ago. But I called Roland when I was doing that red Bronco, because I don't like messing with HVAC systems in cars, or in general. I just don't like doing it. But I talked to Roland, and he's like, man, we don't work on anything pre-96. I was like, man, that's I mean, it's a good policy to have, you know, because you know, we would have people bring in these old Caprices and old junk car. You'd be amazed at the stuff people would come in, and we had a machine that we'd hook up to the lines if it was an R12 car back then, and try and figure out, you know, make sure that it was a 12 system before we hooked our machine to it, because I don't remember how much 12 was a pound back then, but it was, you know, we weren't about to contaminate what we had to try to mess with those. But we'd have cars come in that had propane. They somehow figured out a way to charge it with propane and stuff. But it's funny, because now I think they actually are using propane in modern HVAC systems, because They had R12, and it was just so hazardous to the ozone, and cow flatulence weren't reproducing and covering the ozone, and every time cars were in a wreck, all that 12 was just going into the atmosphere, and we're all gonna die. So they changed it to 134, and 96 I think it was, and now they're already wanting to phase it out for something else. All it is money, and so the funny thing is the Freon is heavier than air. So how does it go up into the atmosphere? I guess the average person doesn't know that or understand science. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but they're just always changing the refrigerants. I guess because somebody's making money off of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't worry about it. But anyway, hopefully I'll throw a vacuum on this thing here in a second, and then hopefully that goes well. And then it's got a turbo 350 in it, and he actually wants to do a $700 for. He wants to do an LS swap, but candidly, he doesn't want to pay for it. He doesn't want to pay that amount of money to LS swap it and do it how it needs to be done. So we're going to waste money on stuff and not have the same end result. But anyway, not my car, not my money. So, but if you are going to do something like this, save your money and do it how it needs to be done, because you're just wasting your money doing it trying to do it cheaper, because we tried to do the Pro Comp kit, which was $13.50 out the door. This was $21.50 out the door, and then the $150 reboxing fee on the other one. So, he tried to save money on that. So had we just gone with this in the first place, but if you back out further, if we would have just LS swapped this thing to start with, we would have gotten a new accessory drive. We would have had a nice fuel injected engine. We had a nice electronically controlled automatic. So, and I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes I try to, let's take the solid motor mounts on the Cadillac, for instance. Solid mounts were $130. The other mounts were $500. Guess who was cheap and went with the $130 solid mounts? Me. And guess what's happening? I bought another set of motor mounts that aren't solid and replacing them. So I spent the $130 on the solid mounts. That money's wasted. Bought a set of motor mounts to get rid of the solid mounts because I can't take it. Those were $300. So that's $450, and then my time and labor to pull them and place them. So you see, if you pick up what I'm putting down, it's not going to be cheaper in the end. So, what I quoted him on this is going to be far different, because, it should have been a half a day job, and now here we are 3 days later, and I'm, had to deal with all that drama with the other one not fitting and all that stuff. It's very aggravating, but please do yourself a favor, and this is to me too, but I don't really listen very well. Just go ahead and do it right the first time, because what is that saying they've come up with now? Buy once, cry once, or something like that. If you try to patch it together like this is over a $2,000 Serpentine setup. That's a fraction of the way towards an LS swap. Then you've got a weak 350, and then he's talking about, he wants to be able to spin a tire and stuff. But but he doesn't drive it that hard though, right? So he wants the $700 R4 because he wants the overdrive, which is coming out of the 92 coincidentally. And we all know what's happening with the 92, right? I can't wait to get started on it. But he was wanting to do a Holley Sniper on this, so that's going to be a couple $1,000s. And then the transmission, you know, and he doesn't want to build the transmission. He wants to just risk it and put it in there out of the white truck. And it drives and shifts good, but if it were mine, and I told him this, if it were mine, I would take that transmission, I would have it rebuilt, and I would have a brand new torque converter in it before I put it in. But actually, let's back up. If it were mine, I'd LS swap it. I wouldn't deal with this garbage. So, I don't know. I'd probably beat that dead horse. But anyway, that's that. And then we got this thing back in here. I don't know if I talked about this or not, but this is the one. I think I only had a dyno video of this one. This one is a 6.2. It has some kind of a Texas Speed camshaft in it. I did headers, obviously DOD delete, blocked out the phaser, the cam phasers. I blocked those out. It's got a very nice Circle D converter in it, and it was skipping on number 4, and a compression check 2 and 4, and they were within a few percent of each other, and switched coils around and everything, and it appears to be the injector. So she just dropped off a new set of injectors for this thing, and apparently that's a common problem on these trucks, is either the wiring or the injectors or whatnot. So, on the early ones, they only had the injector going into the heads down here. You didn't have the intake on the runner, which would actually clean the intake runner. So there's a lot of buildup on the valves, kind of like the EcoBoost. Anything that's direct injection and doesn't have another set of injectors to clean the intake runner. So it's very problematic on these things. So that's why in the later, once they figured it out, they put another 2 set direct injection and then the injection in the intake runner. So, but this truck will absolutely scoot. It made 410 at the tires, and I think it made like 433 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. And with that 8-speed in this truck, it will absolutely fly. So this was the first one that I ever tuned that was a torque-based setup, and it was, I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow I got it pretty close. My tune-up on this truck made 390 something, and then when Michael dynoed it and all, he was able to clean a couple things up, and it made 409 and 433. So it's a pretty quick truck for a big Escalade, and I think it does pretty good on fuel mileage too. So that's the first time I've had to put a set of injectors in one of these. So they're pretty hard to get out. You just got to go easy in it and work them. Just keep working it front to back and just trying to get them out, because they're in there tight. Because I think that with that mechanical pump on the back, I think they're close to 1,000 psi rail pressure. So I guess they got to be tight in the hole. So, but we got these are the injectors here. So they're pretty crazy looking. But I gotta put these in. I'll be putting these in while I'm vacuuming the AC on his car, and try to get this thing back together for her, because I know she misses it, and I need the space in the shop. So. Anyway, that's what we got going on in the shop this week. All the parts came in for the EcoBoost, so I got to get started on that sometime. And then, and then the Cadillac, it got 17 miles to the gallon, so I was very happy with that. It's doing well. Got to get a few more clutch cycles in and get the solid motor mounts out. So anyway, that's that update.